everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have an Emerald City Comic Con book haul. So this past weekend, my family and I went to Emerald City Comic Con. I have a vlog on that if you would like to watch. It's not too long, it's just some of the stuff that we did there. But the main reason that I like to go is to find authors and artists and like walking up and down Artist Alley. And I have never been to Emerald City Comic Con before. I've been to like the Phoenix ones. They also had a writer's block. So like one of the floors they had was mostly authors and artists. I've never seen it split up like that where it was like those specific things, but I absolutely loved being there and I found more things than I probably needed. I literally brought a suitcase empty so that we could put books in it to bring home because I was gonna buy stuff and I still ended up with another tote bag. So I don't actually know how many things I have here. I don't actually know how much money I spent. I saved up for months before we went, so like I had the money. I was not necessarily like hemming and hawing over how much money I was spending, but obviously I probably spent more than like other people could at any given day. Like I knew this is what I was going for. A lot of the times when I go to Comic Cons as well, I do the whole like celebrity panels and autographs and things like that, but because we had the kids, we didn't do that. So I also didn't have money that I spent on autographs and things that I normally would. So that probably also went into the books a little bit as well. One of my goals this year, and I've mentioned it a few times, is to try to read 50% of the things that I'm hauling in. And so far I'm at like 15%. This is obviously gonna make the number drop much lower. Like I need to get on that. I'm hoping now that we've gone through January with my birthday month, February where I did a couple book sales, and now March with Comic-Con, I'm hoping not to buy things very much and we're gonna read books instead. So that was probably a longer introduction than we needed to say that I bought quite a few things here. And so yeah, let's go over what I hauled from Emerald City Comic Con. Okay, so one of the things that you probably saw in my vlog is that I did go and actually like see Cassandra Clare and her panel, and that was for the release of the Ragpicker King, which just came out this like last week, like the week of Comic-Con pretty much. So this is the second book in the Swordcatcher series, I think like the Castellane series, something like that. It's her adult fantasy, and this is like the first edition, so it has a really nice art underneath the dust jacket. Like it's just so cool that way. It does have a map as our end papers, and then this is signed by Cassandra Clare, the author, which is great. I'm in the middle of the first book because it is an adult fantasy. It's moving a little bit slower than personally I would like. The chapters are quite long. There's nothing in it that is making me be like, I don't like this series, I don't want to continue, but because of the way the writing style is and because it's not my like preferred type of fantasy, I prefer more modern day urban fantasy type of stuff. I do want to try the audiobook of that just because it is more slow going than normal, but I am very curious for the second book as well. I'm curious about like the magic system and the different things like that. Book one is following basically the sword catcher. So like that's the name of the first book, obviously. But it's where there was this boy who was at an orphanage and he looks very much like the prince, and only a few people know this, but he was basically brought in as a sword catcher for him, where they do have one type of people in this world who have a little bit of magic. This is not like a magical fantasy world. There's like most of the magic has been eradicated, but they have this like charm that he can wear, which will intend for people to not realize he's not the prince if he needs to step in certain situations that might be more dangerous. So like he is basically the body double of the prince, and then we follow him and the prince and other people in this world. And so this is book two, and I'm very curious to see where we're gonna go. I also picked up Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee. This is a book that has been on my radar for a while. So some of these books I have never heard of before today, and then some of them I have. Again, I got it signed, which is always so fun to do. And this is a series. This is book 1, but this is a series that has different LGBTQ characters in a sort of like sci-fi superhero setting. I'm not entirely too sure which one this is, like which one we're following here, what kind of identities and stuff we're following in this one, but it is something that I've been meaning to read for a while. I do believe it is YA, and so I'm very excited to have this. Then one of the first things I actually ended up picking up is from this author here. So this is going to be by Cerise Rennie Murphy. I picked up 2 different books. The first is Between Two Seas, a collection of short stories. I think the covers that she had were absolutely gorgeous, and it's very short. So this is one of those things where I'm not like a big anthology short story person, but I do feel like I can really tell you a bunch of different stuff about their writing style or the different types of worlds that they want to do. And so I did want to definitely try this out. And then she had a couple different series, and I picked up book 1 of her duology that is completed. This is called The Wolf Queen, which is book 1 of The Hope of a Fairy. And again, the covers are absolutely gorgeous. And because, again, I saw her there, I did get it signed. This is going to be some sort of fantasy world. It says, once great and powerful sorcerers, the Amasidi were hunted to the brink of extinction by the Heer and his followers. For 400 years, their legacy faded from memory, waiting for the hope of a fairy to be renewed. I'm pretty sure she also said that this is going to be having some sort of mythology from, I think, Ethiopia. And so I'm very excited to try both of these out. This is book 1 in a duology. These are short stories. Another book that I picked up is Stakes and Bones. This is book 1 in the Seattle Slayers by Julia V. and Ken Babel. They had a couple different series as well here, and this was going to be a little bit more urban fantasy. The Seattle Slayers are an elite cadre of fighters dedicated to protecting the city, and they're having their trials for new initiates. I really like magical trials, things that are maybe not exactly Hunger Games-esque, but like things where you have these trials and games and situations that they have to do, and they could be deadly. Like, I think that's always something that I'm really drawn to. So that is always something that I'm looking for. And again, going to be signed by both authors. So a lot of the things that I picked up is book 1 in some sort of series, so I can get a handle on like how they write and things like that. Very excited. Lots of indie things. The next one I have here is North Queen by Nicola Taichi. This one's a very big, thick one. The Return of a Lost Heir. The Kingdom of Mercia has been at war with the Shadow King and his dark army for 10 years. To escape the seer's vision of her capture, Mercia's heir to the throne, Princess Nora Andel, is secreted away by her father to keep her safe. But when he dies in battle, so too dies the knowledge of where she's hidden. She's lost to the world until 3 years later, when she's found with no memory of who she is or the kingdom that now rests on her shoulders. I will say, while we're doing this, I do find it different to have me sort of read the backs of these and pitch them to you, because during Comic-Con, you actually have the authors specifically talking to you and pitching them to you. And usually they'll go more for maybe like the types of tropes in the book. I think this one had some sort of like, I don't know if it was enemies to lovers, but like she had like a whole like, here are some tropes that you will find. And I do find them being able to pitch their story different than reading the synopsis. I think this one is also going to have some romance in it. But yeah, I'm very excited to try this out, even though I think it is one of the bigger books that I have purchased this weekend. It is also going to be signed. And a lot of these books are completed series as well. I think there was at least 3 books in this one that was on the table, but we're gonna try book 1. The next ones that I had in that bag are actually like a whole trilogy type of thing, because they were gorgeous and I could not help myself. If you see that I bought like 3 or 4 or 5 books by a certain author, part of it was also they were having like an Emerald City Comic-Con bundle where if you bought a certain amount of books, you got $5 off, or one of them was like if you buy 4 you get a 5th one free, and I was already thinking of getting 3 of them, so why not, you know what I mean? So that was sort of like this one. I think this was like buy a certain number you get some off, but these are all going to be sort of in the same series. This one, the first book, Bound by Ravens, these are by Jessica Sundin, is going to be almost a standalone. It's 2 rival thieves, one fated heist gone wrong, and a curse that threatens to steal more than their freedom. It is going to have some sort of like fae, I'm pretty sure. Can you guys see those edges? Like, it's just like gorgeous. On the inside of the cover, we also have art. Like, I just think the attention to detail on some of these indie books is like amazing. Oh, it was also signed. So this one's not very big, but it is going to have like the beginnings of this sort of, I think it's like a market that they're going to be at. And then this one has a heist in it. And then book 2 was the night market. Yeah, so there's going to be at some sort of market. This one says, a mortal seer enslaved by a traveling fairy market, a raven shifter forced into marriage to save his caravan tribe, and a future not even the cards could predict. So this is going to be book 2. Going to be sort of starting its own next thing, although you probably should read the first book first. Again, with like the attention to detail and the art on the inside. And again, really cool edges. And then book 3 is actually sort of like a sequel to book 2. This one is called The Heartbreak Show, with our edges and the art underneath. Because this one is sort of a direct sequel to the second one, let me check what the back says. Oh, should be fine. A demi-mortal with a divine secret, a raven shifter determined to win a bet, and a quest that changes everything. So yeah, this is some sort of like market area that has, I think, morally gray characters, and that's run by raven shifters. And then one of the things that we did on the last day we were there on Sunday is they had an area that was free books. It was free. You could leave a donation, which I did, but it's a science fiction outreach project, which I just think is so cool. So they had like different information on there. I'll try and leave them linked down below as well. And so I ended up getting some Star Trek novels. Like I said, I did actually end up paying for them because I wasn't going to take books for free when I knew I had money for them. But I picked up Chain of Attack by Jean DeWeese. I do not know 100% what these are about, except for that I wanted them and I did not have them already. Ghost Walker by Barbara Hambly. And The Final Nexus by Jean DeWeese. Then they actually had kids' books as well, so they let the kids pick out a book. Elliot picked up Olivia, and Presley picked up A Hatful of Dragons, which is apparently a poetry book. They were asking if he could read yet, and he can. And these are just cute little poems that we'll see, because some of the words are a little bit hard for him probably, but then other ones probably are not too crazy. But I think he'd have fun with this. So I thought it was very cute that they also had kids books specifically set aside for if you had kids with you. So like I said, they did have some books for free. They're doing an outreach sort of thing for that. I did end up leaving money for all the books that we got. So now we're getting into the suitcase, the whole suitcase. Okay, so the first ones that we have in here are actually by like a small indie press. So the guy that was there does some writing as well, but he made these anthologies. One is by Faerie Light. This is going to be dark fairy tales. He said sort of in the vein of the Grimm brothers, not their fairy tales, original ones, but in that same vein. And these have stories by Dave Gross, Elaine Cunningham, Aaron Hoffman, Shanna Germain, Kat Rambo, Jennifer Brozek, James L. Sutter, Minerva Zimmerman, Jeffrey Scott Peterson, Christy Yant, Lillian Cohen-Moore, Tora Cottrell, Eric Scott DeBy, Andrew Penn Romaine, Ed Greenwood, Amber E. Scott, James Gates, Nathan Croder, and Julia B. Ellingbo. He said these ones have a lot of like local authors to Washington State. And then we also picked up Nowhereville, Weird as Other People. He said this is going to be more urban horror, which I was also intrigued by. And this is going to have stories from Nuzo Ono, Maura McHugh, P. Jelly Clark, Evan J. Peterson, S. P. Miskowski, Craig Lawrence Gidney, Linda E. Rucker, Terrio Ndoro, D.A. Shaolin Spires, Mike Allen, Jeffrey Thomas, Erica L. Sadovka, Kathy Koja, Lee Bobbitt, Ramsey Campbell, Wool Talabi, Stephen Graham Jones, R.B. Lemberg, and Cody Goodfellow. So some of these people I've heard of, some of them I have not, but I was curious about these. Dark fairy tales, urban horror, yeah. And not only have I been picking up books, even though I did find a lot of indie books, I do also pick up like indie comics and graphic novels. So one of the ones that we have here is Meow The Infinite Book 1 by Anna Retberg and Casey Muratori. So this one is going to be a little bit more for middle grade, young adult type of stuff. I thought it looked cute, so we're gonna check it out. I think it's like sci-fi with cats and aliens and things like that. But I also figure if this is something that somehow turns out not to be for me, or I read it once and it was good but I don't want to keep it, my teenage sister also likes graphic novel type of stuff, so I thought this would just be fun to get. But yeah, very curious about this. Also going to be signed. The next couple ones we have here are actually things that I sort of, like as soon as I saw the table, I knew I was probably going to pick up, because this is a sequel to Niobe, She Is Life by Sebastian A. Jones and Amanda Stamberg. I have the first one, obviously. I have read it before, really did enjoy it. It's been a little while, so I might re-pick that one up before I get to this. But the sequel is Niobe, She Is Death, and so I'm very curious to see where that first one is going to go. And this one on the back does say that this is the sequel to Niobe, She Is Life, where in that one we witness Niobe's journey from broken-hearted teenager to a warrior woman. This is going to be after that. And then we also have Tales of Asunda, Volume 1. This, I believe, has potentially 4 or 5 different separate stories. They're all set in this same world, but they're going to be by different authors and different art styles and things like that. And yeah, I was just sort of curious about this as well, because I did like the first one. I decided the sequel and the short story collection by different authors would be good to get. The next one that I have here is Twisted Dark Volume 1 by Neil Gibson. So this is a person that, again, I spoke to the actual author while we were there. Pretty sure it is signed. Yes. And he let me read the first story in this one before I decided or not. And it was like 2 pages. It is dark, it is a little bit twisted. It actually made me laugh near the end, and I was very curious about this. He said that they are almost guaranteed to sell a book if they let the people read 2 stories. I was sold after 1, because like my whole point of going to a Comic-Con was to find things like this and buy them and read them. But he is also contracted to, I guess, do some Black Mirror comics, which I think is very interesting. So I'm hoping this is in that same sort of vein, which the first story did sort of feel like that way. A little bit dark, a little bit twisted, like we had a twist in there. And I'm just very curious about this. It's the darker side of humanity in 11 interconnected tales exploring the themes of loss, hate, revenge, and death, which is also something that got me, was the interconnected stories part. He did mention that, yes, there are going to be different stories in here, but they are all interconnected, and I love that idea. This is volume 1, and I'm pretty sure they said there's at least like 5 or 6 volumes out, so I'm very excited to get to this and then probably read more. Another one I picked up is Black Cloak. This is by Kelly Thompson, Meredith McLaren, and Becca Carey. I picked up volume 1. There was multiple volumes of this there as well. And this is a sci-fi noir. So I think there's some sort of mystery, maybe even a murder mystery. But again, very, very curious about it. Yeah, it does say a delectable fantasy and sci-fi blend with a detective procedural. So yeah, I am very interested in that. And this was also signed by the artist who is currently at the table when I was there. And she also doodled like a little cute squirrel, which I just think is adorable. Like, I was so excited. But I love the art style. It's going to be some sort of like fantasy detective thing. Yeah. Oh, and then the next things that I got chapters 1 and 2 of The Substitutes by Maisha Haynes. I actually read chapter 1, this one, Saturday night after I bought it, and really am enjoying it. I want to read chapter 2. The thing is, chapter 2 is not on Goodreads or Storygraph right now, so I need to sort of figure out if I can see if that will get added, or if I'm just going to be tracking it on my spreadsheet, and so my numbers will be slightly off at the end of the year. But this is about a trio of roommates who somehow end up going through this portal into this other world that has magic and accidentally stealing the relics from a group of heroes, these people on the back, that were on a mission to get them in the first place. So yeah, like chapter 1, I gave it 4.5 stars. We'll talk about it a little bit more in my wrap up, I guess. But I was very curious to see the start of this, and I definitely want to read the second part because there's so many things that I need answered now, but also I love the art style so much. So I was very excited that I picked those up. Oh, and I also picked up a kid's book from the same table as the Niobe books. So this is also done by Sebastian A. Jones, but also Garcelle Beauvoir. So this is a children's picture book that is called I Am Awesome, and we read this already as well. I think it's really cute. It just talks about why they're awesome, because they're brave, or they can run fast, or they like playing games, and they work hard, and they, you know, are good friends, and that kind of thing. And so I just thought this was really cute, so we picked that up as well. Another book I picked up is this one right here, The Seafarer's Kiss by Julia Ember. This is the same author as Ruin Song, which they did also have at the table, and I think Ruin Song might be a little bit more traditionally published. I remember seeing that cover somewhere, whereas this is going to be an indie published one, but it is going to be sapphic, and I believe she was saying that this is also like a take on The Little Mermaid sort of thing, and so I was very curious. And we will definitely try this. It is also going to be signed. I love the sort of like paper craft aspect of this cover. Like, you don't see this very much, but I really like it. And then, like I said, we had some people that had sales when you bought certain books. And so there was one author I got 5 books from, because this was the, if you buy 4, you get 1 free, and I was already basically going to get 3 of them, and at least. So the first one I ended up picking up was her cozy fantasy with romance. It's Cookbooks and Demons. So this is by Megan Mackey. I was pretty much sold at that point, but basically this is somebody who's trying to bake something in the kitchen and accidentally summons a demon. I've heard of this trope before. I feel like this is something that was like a thought project for quite a few people a few years ago, and we've had a couple books come out with this sort of vein. I haven't actually read them, but now I think I have at least one other one on my shelves. I might need to do some sort of like reading vlog where we just read all the accidentally summoned demon books, but I think the cover is really, really cute, and actually I purchased this on Saturday, and I got the last copy that she had. So this, she said she was amazed that it was selling so quickly, but I do think we all know cozy fantasy, especially if it has romance in there, is a big seller right now. And so I think this was one of her most recently written books, and I'm very excited for this. And then I also picked up some things that are basically in the same series. So we have book 1, which is The Finder of the Lucky Devil. Again, really, really interested in these covers. I think a lot of the things that I got were mostly cover buys. Like, I was intrigued by the cover, I looked at it, I went over to the table to see what was going on, and then the author could tell me about them. But she said this is a world where I think sci-fi, like technology and magic, are sort of at odds, and I was very curious about this. I also picked up book 2 sort of as one of my extras, because book 2 is The Saint of Liars. We also have a spin-off, which is Saint Code The Lost, which is much smaller, like more novella sized. And she said her reading order is basically like 1, 2, 1, and then go to 3 for the end of the trilogy, and then go back to the short ones. So I was like, you know what, we're gonna try those. I think these are also a little bit mysterious with their whole sci-fi fantasy vibes. And then there was another one that I really wanted to try as well. This one is in the same world. It's a Lucky Devil romance, so the world is the Lucky Devil. But this is Death and the Crone. And this is supposed to be some sort of, I think, immortal man. And she said it was her take on, instead of the immortal person falling in love with a teenager, what if he fell in love with somebody who was in her 60s? And I'm like, yeah, I need to try that out, because yeah, he's been alive for how long? He's probably gonna look younger, but he's getting to fall in love with a more mature woman, and I'm very, very curious to see how this is gonna go. So this is just set in the same world. I don't think it's going to really matter when I read them, but the back also does say it's a reverse Beauty and the Beast retelling. Like, I definitely want to try it. Still have a couple more bags to go. Let's see what we have in here. Okay, another one that I picked up is Ferocious by Stella Williams. So this is book 1 in a series with witches. It's going to be a Secrets of Ceres novel. The magical utopia of Ceres and its inhabitants, the Aura, have been a well-guarded secret until now. Farah Andromeda is taking charge of her life outside of the sanctuary of Ceres, a kick-ass Aura PI. She spends most of her day chasing cheats and scoundrels, at least until she's tasked with a top-secret mission by one of the ruling 4. Okay, this also might have some sort of sci-fi element. But yeah, I think she also said that there was witches. It is signed. I'll have to double check, but this is book 1, and everything in the series, again, had like the little tropes listed for it, and I don't remember off the top of my head what everything was, but I decided, obviously, we're gonna start with book 1. The next stuff I have here is Lore Stalker. I did pick up 2 because, again, it was on a sale, or if you got 2, you got some money off or something. And this is gonna be a series about college-aged girls who are like going tracking for cryptids. I thought it sounded intriguing. So the first one is the Kraken of Cape Madre, and the second one is the Witch of Gray's Point. He did also have a prequel about the girl's father and mother, I guess, like when they met potentially, that also had Bigfoot. And then I think this was like a 6-book thing with the prequel where he said you can technically read them in any order, although he would suggest actually book 1, book 2, then the prequel, then the rest of the series. But really you just need to read book 6 last because then everything sort of comes together. But otherwise every single book is going to have a separate cryptid sort of thing. And so yeah, I was curious about this. So we're going to see. It's following either one or both of these college-age girls who are hunting cryptids. The next one I picked up was Jack of Thorns by A.K. Faulkner. This is going to be, I think, male-male romance. I think pretty much everything at that table was queer. And so, yeah, this is going to be fantasy. Lawrence Riley has seen the future and all his visions are coming true. Just as he can't control the addiction that dominates his life or the mind games of his stalker ex-boyfriend, he also struggles with his untamed supernatural gifts. I, again, am curious about this. And so because of that, I picked it up. I really do like the cover. So yeah. Okay, the next one I have here is 3 books in a series again. This was a big series. It was like a trilogy, a quadrilogy, another trilogy, and then some more at the end. This was one of those things where if you bought 3, you got a little bit of money off, and you got the downloads of the first 3 as ebooks as well, which I do feel like gives me a little bit of leeway on what we want to do. Again, I'm really interested in these covers. I think they sound really cool. And so we have Embrace of the Shade, which is book 1. Blood of the Key, which is book 2, and Unraveling of the Soul, which is book 3. These are going to be by Amanda Muratoff and Kayla Hansen. And again, they will be signed. So I was just very curious in this. Again, fantasy romance type of stuff. I think she got me because she was like, oh, I see that you like Cassandra Clare, because I had my tote bag from the book signing thing. And I was like, you know what? I am curious about different things like that. This says, Amari's legendary magic could incinerate her enemies, but it's her sword she trusts. While running from the men who killed her family, she learns of an ancient text locked within the Great Library that might be the final key to understanding her curse. During the daring theft, a stranger inserts himself into her scheme. Kin's roguish good looks and boundless charm threaten to distract her, but she has no intention of landing in the city jail. Kin's life, riddled with shadows and death, is as dark as his soul. He embraces his power given by a wicked master, but when he meets Amari, she shatters the walls he's built, piercing his solitude with vibrant light. But if she learns he hunts the power cursing her family, he will lose her forever. So yeah, probably fantasy romance type of stuff. This is a completed series as well. I think she said, was it 14 books? Was it a 14-book series? It was something like that where, like I said, this is a trilogy, and then there was like another sort of trilogy. They do sort of go in order, like you need to read them in order, and then it all leads up to a big payoff at the very, very end with everything. So yeah, I'm getting myself into some stuff here, but I really did like the covers. And finally, I don't know how long this video is, probably way too long. The last thing I picked up was this. Grimoire, a Grim Oak Press Anthology for Emerald City Comic Con 2025. So this is with authors that were attending Emerald City Comic Con. It's edited by Sean Speakman, but so this is an anthology for those authors. So we have Terry Brooks, Cassandra Clare, Matt Dinneman, Robin Hobb. Oh, Peppa's gonna hold that.
Yeah.
Oh, a lollipop. Okay, can I finish this really quick? Okay, thank you. Okay, so it has Terry Brooks, Cassandra Clare, Matt Dinneman, Robin Hobb, Shauna McGuire, Annalee Newitz, Kat Ogden, Sean Speakman, Nate Taylor, and then Julia V. and Ken Babel. Obviously, I picked up some of these books while we were there. Cassandra Clare, obviously. And then also because I watched the Cassandra Clare panel, which was in talks with Terry Brooks, I actually want to read some of Terry Brooks' stuff now because I actually really loved his voice and how funny he was with talking with her. Like, they were both hilarious in a good way. Like, it was just so interesting to watch. I'm curious to see if his actual personal voice comes through in his books. But so this will be a good thing to try. It just had a bunch of authors that were there. And yeah, so I did pick this up as well. Yeah, I don't even know exactly what this is about. I think it's all fantasy, most likely. But it's just from authors that were at the Comic-Con. So again, another short story collection. And so that is it, right? Yeah, how many did I get? That is 38 books we just talked about. 3 of them are for the kids. So 35 for me. Yeah, like I said before, I want to read at least half of the things that I'm hauling in the year, so I need to stop buying things. And hopefully pretty much the rest of the year is just reading everything I bought, because this will be the largest haul that I've had this year so far. Out of all the months, 35 books for me is the largest. But like I said, that was part of the reason I go to Comic-Con. I want to see the indie authors, indie artists, and figure out comics, graphic novels, indie books, things that I have never really seen before. Some of these I have, some of these I've been curious about, but most of them are brand new to me. Never seen them before, never heard of the author before, and I'm very excited to try them out. Like, this is one of the things that I love, and I'm sure the authors that are going there are very appreciative of people that want to be there to get this kind of stuff, because again, like I said, most of these are people that I've never heard of before, but now I have books to try. I am very excited. I really am. I don't know where they're gonna go on these shelves. I don't. But so, yeah, let me know if you've heard of any of these books, especially like the indie ones, obviously. If you've read any of them, if you're curious about any of them, because I don't know where I'm gonna start. Yeah, okay, and if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos coming out Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye!